Good morning and welcome to Education Without Borders. With us here we have a special guest. We would like to ask her to tell us her name and a little bit about her background, and in particular we want to know about her education. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, Education Without Borders audience. My name is Grace Kibui Kago, and this is my Tata Wanjiko. I'm really glad to be here to speak to you today. So should I just jump into my background?
Yes, continue with your background. That's okay.
Yeah, so my educational background, so I'm related to Tata Wanjiko because she's the sister of my dad. And I think if I give some educational background, I am a biomedical research scientist. I was born right here in Nairobi, Kenya. I went to Makini School, and then I moved to the United States in 7th grade, and I went to a school called St. Andrew's School, St. Andrew's Episcopal School, and then I went to a college called McDaniel College where I studied biology. And then I worked in a lab for a long time before I decided to pursue my PhD in cell and molecular biology, from which I graduated in 2022.
Thank you. And after graduation, what did you specialize in? Did you go to work or did you continue with your education? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so after you graduate with a PhD, you can either pursue a postdoctoral fellowship to kind of expand your skill sets and prepare yourself to be a faculty member, or you can work in a research laboratory as a research staff scientist, or you can go to industry and work for an industrial company to develop products and drugs and that sort of thing. Or you can go into science communication and work as a science writer. There are all sorts of things. For me, I really enjoy lab work, so I stayed on as a research staff scientist. And then also I decided to kind of embark on science communication efforts as well.
Very interesting. Tell us a little bit more about the molecular, you said molecular biology?
Yes.
What is it? Just break it down for the layman to understand.
Yeah, so the way that we understand living systems today, so in 2025, the way that biologists understand living systems is we understand that every living system is made up of cells, and all of these cells in higher organisms are differentiated into different organs and different tissues. And all of these together work together to kind of maintain the larger organism. Inside those cells, there are chemicals that have different jobs and different purposes, and so these chemicals can be categorized as molecules. So when you hear someone say that they are in molecular biology, that means that they are interested in the building blocks that make up cells, and they want to understand how all those building blocks facilitate the cell's life cycle or its lifestyle, and then largely that is relevant to now human life, human disease, human well-being, plant life, plant well-being, basically every living thing. So that's kind of how we can relate now molecules to human life and human things that are relevant to us.
Okay, tell us a little bit more on the small creatures or things that affect the human body.
Yes.
The bacteria, viruses, and those sort of things.
Yeah, so the current understanding of disease, the word disease, dis-ease, is the current model is that it's usually some sort of dysfunction at the cellular level. And so this means that just about any disease you can think of, right now, the way that doctors and scientists understand is usually there's some dysfunction happening at the cellular level. So one of the types of dysfunction is an attack in those cells or on those cells, meaning a disruption of their function. And some of the organisms that can disrupt their function are single-celled organisms like bacteria. So these are living organisms that exist alongside multicellular organisms like ourselves, and they can infect cells and disrupt them. And so whenever you hear of a bacterial disease, that's usually what that means. That means that a bacteria has colonized a certain part of your body and disrupted the cellular function in that area of your body, and then that's what causes now your illness. Similarly, you can have a viral infection, and this means a virus which is not typically considered living, but it requires living cells to propagate itself. And so now a viral infection is when a virus has now colonized a specific part of your body. So that's cell biology, and cell function relates to disease in bacteria and viruses in that way. That's how they intersect.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit more. This seems to be a very scientific topic, yet it is a topic that affects each one of us. Human beings, we get affected, we interact with these organisms, whether they are bacteria or viruses. How have you individually tried to make this knowledge accessible to everybody? Tell us a little bit about that as well.
That's a great question. So most of the time, by the time you're listening and thinking about molecules, usually it's in class, in your biology class or in your chemistry class or microbiology or those types of classes. But oftentimes, if you haven't had the opportunity to go to school, or if you didn't necessarily have the opportunity to consider how they relate to you, sometimes you leave all that information in class. But that information is relevant to you as you consider disease and as you understand the way you relate to the world around you. So I feel very strongly about science being made accessible and understandable, because I think it's one thing to go to class and hear about science in class, and another thing to integrate it to your daily life. So one thing that I do is I try to translate concepts related to disease and cells and bacteria and how they intersect. We try to translate conversations around that topic into our mother tongue of Kikuyu. So I run a platform called Tunyamutwe Moyo, which means little living organisms. And on that channel, we host conversations about disease, but we focus on what is happening at the molecular and cellular level. So that is one way that I try to make the science that I have had the privilege to learn, I try to make that more accessible to non-scientist audiences.
Okay, thank you very much. That's quite interesting. Can you tell us a little bit what motivated you to have this idea of reaching out to the non-scientists to understand Tunyamutwe Mwoyo? What was your motivation?
That's a great question. So I think for me, the trigger, I think I've always been interested in teaching, because even when I was small, I would be those people that organizes their dolls in a row, and then I used to have chalk, and at the time my parents, they had a gate that was black, and so I used to write on that as a chalkboard. So I've always been interested in teaching. And during COVID, so in 2020, something that was really apparent to me was that the way that people were discussing, the SARS-CoV-2 virus and its role in COVID disease, that conversation I found to be very multifaceted. Like, there were very many ideas and concepts related to that virus and the disease. And at the time, I remember wondering how people who don't speak English, how they were kind of integrating some of this information. So for me, obviously, I speak English, but I was born here in Kenya, and my grandparents are based here, and they live in rural part of Kenya. And I remember every time we would visit, we would switch now to talking in Kikuyu. So I've always been aware of the fact that there are many people who don't necessarily live in English language, even though they understand, they don't necessarily do their life in English. And so then I remember wondering how those communities of people, how they were integrating and interacting with all of this knowledge that was coming out. I think every week there was a new discovery or a new finding about the virus and the spread of the virus and the nature of the virus, the types of proteins that were being targeted for vaccines. There was so much information coming out. And so I remember wondering how my grandparents were integrating that information and how they were dialoguing. So I tried to spend some time listening to Kikuyu news and trying to see, okay, how are they discussing this topic? And I found that there wasn't so much detail in terms of the molecular detail. And so I decided to take that challenge to try and teach in Kikuyu language for two reasons. Number one, so I can become a better speaker of Gikuyu, and then number two, so that I could provide this very foundational but very important fundamental information.
Oh, thank you very much. That's a very authentic reason, our motivation. And just for our viewers, maybe tell us a little of this channel. Where can we get it? Just tell us a little about it so that they also get exposed if they understand the language, and you also can motivate other people to disseminate knowledge and information in different languages, not necessarily in English or in Latin or even Kiswahili. And in particular, we find that the local languages sometimes are maybe ignored when it comes to dissemination of scientific content. Tell us a little bit about your channel and maybe a little example of how you teach.
Yeah, so right now, so when I started the channel, it was just me, like giving lessons. So I taught about like what is diabetes and what is cancer, what is COVID, what is a vaccine. Again, I'm not trying to convince people to accept my way of thinking. What I'm trying to do is just translate the way that I understand all these concepts from my vantage point. So initially, I think there's maybe 50 or so videos of just me teaching. And then most recently, I have pivoted away from that, and I work with a team of media specialists based here in Kenya. It's a husband-wife team that run a media company that is focused on Kikuyu content. And so what they have done is they have been helping me kind of like explain and clarify some of the concepts in a way that is understandable and accessible. Because for me, I always taught them in a very formal way, but they have challenged me to think about pushing it more towards like a conversation. Like, what would a conversation look like versus a lesson? So for the last few months, it's not me teaching. It's usually I work with this team, and what they do is they make short episodes about the topics that our audience asks us about. So that's a current working model. And then in February, I don't know if the listeners know, but in the month of February, I believe it's February 21st, is International Mother Language Day. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I know it's in the month of February. And on that day, we celebrate, mother tongues and mother languages. So what I did in February is I put together a cohort of scientists based here in Kenya who have different mother tongues, and we did lessons about different scientific concepts. And so on the channel right now, there are 3 lessons. I believe there are 3 lessons in Kalenjin language. There's 1 lesson in the Luo language and 1 lesson in Kiswahili. So these scientists decided to take a chance to teach in their language, and they gave me 100% positive feedback. They enjoyed their process, and they learned a lot about their mother tongues in that process. So that's what I'm doing to try and expand my reach, because I know Kikuyu is just one of almost 50 languages here in Kenya. So we are trying to kind of develop resources to increase these conversations. I should stress that for us, what we do is science engagement, meaning we are providing supplemental information. We are not trying to advocate 100% to say we have to teach in local languages 100%. What I'm saying is we have to supplement our knowledge that comes from, basically, I think the hill that I stand on forever is that our local languages are living, they are being used by people now, and they have to kind of be allowed to grow and expand to integrate modern knowledge as we are learning. Because I think it's very dangerous to consider our languages as only a relic of the past, because we are here in 2025, so we have to also allow these languages to grow and expand with us as we are growing and expanding. So I think that science engagement in our mother tongues is a really powerful way to facilitate growth and expansion, and ultimately like to facilitate retention. Because I'm sure you maybe when you heard about this, you thought, now these mother tongues, they are only for certain contexts, or they were for a long time ago. But that's not the case. We are here now, we speak these languages now, so we ought to give them space to exist and grow and integrate the knowledge that is being learned and has been learned now.
Okay,
So, yeah.
very interesting. Maybe you are talking about the your mother tongue. Your mother tongue is Gikuyu. Gikuyu. Maybe in just a paragraph, 2 minutes, twere uria uhotete guthondeka Gikuyu giaku nigetha uhote guthomithia uhoro wa tunyamu twi muoyo.
Okay, so journey ino ni koretwo ndaigu tondu nie ndikoretwo ngiaria Gikuyu muno, no njoete kamweke gaka ga kwiruta Gikuyu nigetha hote gutaura na hote gubundithia uhoro wa thero na mingini. Ndirerutire kiugo kia bacteria ni mingini, he mundu ungi urogire kiugo kiu ni mingini ciumbe. Koguo turageria kwaria na kwiruta uhoro wa Gikuyu at the same time as gutaura na kwiruta uhoro wa thero na biology, tondu kindu ndirenda ni andu mahote kwaria uhoro wa maundu maya na ruthiomi rwao na uria mahotaga kuelewa. Na kindu kingi nyendete muno ni culture citu cie umenyo wao na cie maundu mao na dawa ciao, na umenyo uyu nduhotete kurehwo at the forefront tondu utigagwo kwi idea at the traditional medicines na uria aithe aitu mesiragia uhoro wa mirimu. Maundu macio ni ma tene na ni maundu ma mundu ogaga atia maundu ma guteanio andu ndigwiciria andu ni manyitaga uhoro ucio na uritu uria ubatie. Koguo nie kindu ndiciragia ni tungikorwo na riciria ria kuhingura ruthiomi nigetha rukure na ithui, ni tukuhota gukua umenyo ucio naguo niwetha uhote kuhuthika umuthi na nigetha uhote guteithia andu umuthi na gutiga kuigwo ati maundu ma tene, tondu ithuothe twi guku riu na umenyo ucio wari na na wari na uritu, na no mwaka tukue na tukurie na tuteithie na twiteithie uguo, tondu gwiciria languages thiomi citu cie uhoti na cie capacity, tondu ni cikuite culture na ni cikuite identity itu. Koguo otaguo no cikue umenyo uyu wothe.
Oh, thank you very much, Grace, for that insight. Again, this is Education Without Borders, and we were with Grace Kibui Kago, and she has told us a lot. She has educated us a lot about what she is doing. She has studied molecular biology all the way up to PhD level. She is based in Texas, University of Texas in Austin, and you can see on the side she has been able to remember her roots. Never ever forget where you came from, especially when it comes to education. Keep watching and keep subscribing, keep following, and also link this to Tunyamu Tui Muoyo. Thank you for watching. We shall be back.